What do you call an army that erases an entire empire so thoroughly that cities cease to exist? Not conquerors, not invaders, architects of annihilation. In 1218, the Khwarazmian Empire was one of the most powerful states in Central Asia. Wealthy trade cities, massive armies, fortified walls that had never fallen. For years later, it was gone, not defeated, not occupied, erased. Rivers ran red for days. Cities that had stood for centuries were reduced to ash and rubble. An estimated 2 million people died not in glorious battle, but in calculated, systematic extermination. This wasn't random violence. This was precision warfare. This was what happens when you mistake diplomacy for weakness and execute the wrong ambassadors. This is how Genghis Khan transformed from a slighted trader into the architect of total erasure. And the Khwarazmian Empire learned too late. The Mongols weren't a nomadic horde. They were an unstoppable war machine with one mission: make an example so terrifying that future enemies would surrender. Welcome to the complete annihilation of Khwarazm, where strategic terror met bureaucratic precision, where an empire died so other empires would know fear. The Silk Road city of Otrar, on the edge of the Khwarazmian Empire, a Mongol trade caravan arrives for 150 merchants. Muslim, actually carefully chosen by Genghis Khan to facilitate peaceful trade relations, carrying gold, silver, silk, jade, legitimate commerce. The governor of Otrar, Inalkuk, makes a decision that will doom his entire civilization. He accuses the merchants of being spies, seizes their goods, and executes the entire caravan. For 150 merchants murdered, their wealth stolen. When Genghis Khan hears this, he doesn't immediately mobilize for war. He follows protocol, sends 3 ambassadors to Sultan Muhammad II, the Khwarazmian ruler, demanding justice, compensation, the governor's head. It's a test, a diplomatic off-ramp, a chance for the Sultan to demonstrate he understands steppe politics and the gravity of what his governor has done. Sultan Muhammad II makes the worst decision in Central Asian history. He executes the lead ambassador, shaves the beards of the other 2, and sends them back to Mongolia as an insult. In step diplomatic protocol, ambassadors are sacred, inviolable. Killing them isn't just an insult. It's a declaration that civilized communication is impossible, that only total war remains. Genghis Khan's response is measured, calculated, terrifying in its simplicity. He gathers his generals and issues an order that will echo through history. The Khwarazmian Empire will cease to exist. Not conquered, erased. This isn't about territorial expansion. This is about making an example so complete that future empires will surrender rather than risk similar treatment. Sultan Muhammad II has just guaranteed his empire's extinction. Not because the Mongols are stronger though they are, not because his cities can't be defended though they can't withstand what's coming, but because he fundamentally misunderstood what he was dealing with. The Mongols aren't raiders. They're a state with diplomatic protocols, legal systems, and consequences for violations. And the consequence for executing Mongol ambassadors is annihilation. What arrives at Khwarazm's borders isn't the stereotypical nomadic horde of popular imagination. It's a bureaucratically organized, multi-ethnic military operation of unprecedented sophistication. 200,000 soldiers. But that's just the combat force. Behind them, logistics units, supply trains, engineering corps, intelligence networks, administrative officials whose job is managing conquered territory. The Mongol military isn't tribal chaos. It's decimal organization. Units of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. Every soldier knows their place. Every commander reports through clear chains of command. Communication across thousands of miles happens through the YAM system. Relay stations where fresh horses and riders wait to carry messages at speeds that won't be matched until the telegraph. The Mongols move faster than information about them. Cities hear rumors of their approach and assume they have weeks to prepare. The Mongols arrive in days, but speed isn't their only advantage. It's the engineering. Genghis Khan doesn't just bring cavalry. He brings captured Chinese engineers, experts in siege warfare, designers of trebuchets, catapults, and the early gunpowder weapons that can reduce walls to rubble. He brings Persian administrators who understand urban governance and tax systems, who can quickly establish civil control. He brings psychological operations specialists, yes, in the 13th century, whose job is spreading terror stories ahead of the army, exaggerating atrocities, creating panic, making surrender seem like the only rational choice. This isn't a horde. This is the most advanced military administrative system in the medieval world. A machine designed to conquer, occupy, and integrate territory with industrial efficiency. And it's heading toward an empire that still thinks cavalry charges and stone walls will be enough. The Mongol invasion begins. Sultan Muhammad II has prepared for conventional warfare. His armies are positioned to defend the traditional invasion routes. The mountain passes, the river crossings, the places where every previous invader has come. The Mongols don't come that way. Instead, they execute a strategic maneuver that military historians still study today. A pincer movement through the Kizilkum Desert. Everyone, including the Sultan, assumes the desert is impassable for a large army. No water, no forage, death for any force that attempts it. The Mongols have already solved this problem. They've scouted the route for months, established hidden supply caches, trained their horses for desert conditions. While the Khwarazmian armies wait at the mountain passes, the Mongols emerge from the desert behind them, striking at the empire's wealthy interior cities before the main armies can respond. Bukhara falls first, one of the great cities of Islamic civilization. Impregnable walls, wealthy, cultured, confident. The Mongol siege begins with psychological warfare. Captured soldiers from other cities are forced to assault the walls first. Friends and family of the defenders, screaming for mercy, used as human shields. When that doesn't break the defenders' will, the siege engines arrive. Trebuchets capable of throwing 300-pound stones. Chinese fire weapons that spray burning naphtha. Constant bombardment that doesn't pause even at night. Bukhara's garrison surrenders after 3 days. The city's scholars are preserved, their knowledge is valuable. The artisans are shipped east to Mongolia, their skills needed. Everyone else? The Mongols empty the city, march the population outside the walls, separate soldiers from civilians, execute the soldiers, conscript the civilians into labor battalions for the next siege. Then they burn Bukhara, systematically, street by street, until nothing remains but ash and ruins. The message spreads. Resistance is death. Surrender means life as a subject. Cities choose. Most choose wrong. The Mongols reach Samarkand, the jewel of the Khwarazmian Empire, the capital, the symbol of the Sultan's power. 50,000 garrison troops. Walls reinforced after Bukhara's fall. Citizens determined to resist. The siege lasts 5 days, not because the Mongols can't take it faster, but because Genghis wants witnesses. He wants stories to spread about what happened here. The Mongols surround the city with a complete investment. No one escapes to warn others. Then they demonstrate their full arsenal. Siege towers taller than the walls, allowing archers to fire down into the city. Catapults lobbing diseased corpses over walls, spreading plague. Sappers digging under foundations, causing wall sections to collapse. And always, the human shields. Captured civilians forced to advance ahead of Mongol troops, making defenders choose between killing their own people or allowing the Mongols to approach. On the 5th day, the garrison attempts a breakout. They fail. Most are slaughtered. The survivors open the gates. What happens next is calculated, strategic, terrifying. The Mongols spare the artisans, goldsmiths, weavers, engineers, anyone with specialized skills. These people are valuable. They're relocated to Mongolia and China to serve the empire. They spare the scholars, doctors, astronomers, poets, historians. Knowledge is preserved. Everyone else involved in governance, military, or administration executed. Systematically, the entire ruling class decapitated in a day. The city itself is partially destroyed. Not completely. Samarkand is too valuable as a trade hub, but enough to demonstrate Mongol power, enough to terrify the next city. And it works. As word spreads of Samarkand's fall, other cities surrender without resistance. Because the Mongol message is clear: resist and be erased. Surrender and serve. Choose. This isn't mindless violence. This is total war as policy, calculated terror as strategy. By 1221, the Khwarazmian Empire has ceased to exist as a political entity. Sultan Muhammad II dies in exile, broken and hunted. His son attempts resistance and is eventually killed. The major cities are rubble or Mongol vassals. The military is destroyed. The bureaucracy is dead. An empire that had stood for generations is gone in 4 years. But the destruction of Khwarezm isn't just about one conquest. It's a blueprint, a demonstration. For the next 50 years, as the Mongols push into Europe, the Middle East, China, every ruler faces the same calculation: fight the Mongols and risk complete annihilation, or surrender and be absorbed into the empire with relative mercy. Most choose surrender because Khwarezm's fate is legendary. The stories have spread. 2 million dead, cities erased, rivers running red for days. Modern archaeology confirms the scale. Excavations of destroyed cities show evidence of systematic burning, mass graves, collapsed infrastructure that was never rebuilt. This was genocide by policy, not ethnic. The Mongols didn't care about ethnicity, but political. The complete destruction of a ruling structure. And it was effective. The Mongol Empire expands faster than any empire in history. Not because they're unbeatable in battle, though they usually are, but because resistance seems futile. Khwarazm's annihilation creates a psychological weapon more powerful than any cavalry charge. If you're watching this and thinking about the ruthless efficiency of military conquest versus modern organizational theory, hit that subscribe button. Because the Mongols weren't just conquerors, they were the most sophisticated logistics operation in medieval history. And understanding how they did it reveals uncomfortable truths about power, organization, and the cost of underestimating your opponents. Drop a comment. What other unstoppable military campaigns should we analyze? Because the Mongols didn't win through luck. They won through superior organization, and that lesson matters. The Khwarazmian Empire made one mistake. They treated diplomacy as theater. They executed ambassadors as a flex of power. The Mongols responded by proving that diplomacy wasn't optional. That in their system, breaking protocol had consequences. Terminal ones. 450 executed merchants led to 2 million dead civilians. One governor's greed erased an empire. That's not barbarism. That's state policy. Brutal. Effective. Unstoppable. The lesson: when an organized war machine disguised as a nomadic horde sends ambassadors, you negotiate. Because the alternative isn't defeat, it's erasure.